in boxing, but I do think when you actually come up against a proper, serious boxer, and I suspect that Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. may be that person, it could all come crashing down.
Piers, is that you think that your opinion matters?
No, I don't think it's good. I think you train hard, but it's not good fighter.
The point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset.
So I've just interviewed your opponent, Julio, very confident, says he's going to knock you out in the 9th round.
Yeah, man, you know, he's a dumbass. And so it's going to be apparent on Saturday when he's the one that gets knocked out.
In round 5 of their forthcoming battle, boxing experts predict that Jake Paul will be knocked out by Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. They think Chavez Jr.'s ring IQ and experience power would overwhelm Jake, finishing the fight early. Many see this as Jake's hardest test against an experienced opponent.
But one thing I've gotten off him during this week is that he's viewing this fight as at least a pathway to some form of redemption. He's not going to get all his fans back. He's not going to redeem himself on the eyes of the fans of his father. But if he can beat Jake Paul and beat him convincingly, maybe you don't think quite so much about quitting against Daniel Jacobs or against Fanfara or that terrible performance against Anderson Silva. Like, I think the point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset. I promise you, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not just here for a payday. He is not just here to collect a check and to get whitewashed by Jake Paul over 10 rounds. He's coming to win. He may not win. Jake could turn out to be even better than maybe people generally think, but he's coming to win, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
July, when asked about Jake Paul's abilities, Cesar Chavez Jr. didn't mince words. He stated unequivocally that even though the younger fighter is committed to training, the results just don't impress. According to Julio, boxing is more than just putting in a lot of effort in the gym. It's about instincts, rhythm, and actual fight experience. Qualities Jake hasn't yet demonstrated on a professional level.
Shit. YouTube this, YouTube that, Disney that. This shit is not a joke. I'm knocking out the best of the best, beating all of these people time in and time again. And it's about time that you old heads and all these fucking boxers who think they know about the sport put some respect on my name.
Yeah, but you're not going to get... Look, you're going to make a ton of money. Listen, I think as a businessman, you are brilliant, right? I give you full credit for that. When you took on Mike Tyson as a business enterprise, there's no argument. You absolutely crushed the numbers, crushed the money and everything else. But the idea that you can say on the one hand, I'm a killer, I get in the ring with the best people, and you get in the ring with a guy who's 50, he's literally nearly as old as me.
I'm not talking about Mike Tyson. I'm talking about Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, champions in their sport, Golden Gloves champions, Ryan Borland, Andre August, undefeated fighters. The list goes on and on.
But what great boxer have you been in the ring with?
Former world champion on Saturday, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., son of the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, besides me, of course. Like, I don't know what you guys want to see. I tried to fight Canelo. He ducked out of it. You asked him about that. You said he's going to kill me. So what do you want, Piers? You're laughing when you say, oh, Jake is going to fight Canelo. I think you would kill him. But then you're like, oh, you're not fighting this guy. You're the problem here with this whole situation and criticism of my career. I'm trying to fight the best people, and that's why Chavez is here on Saturday. I want Canelo. I want Anthony Joshua. I want all these people. It's been 5 years in this sport.
But the problem is the only proper boxer you fought was Tommy Fury, and he beat you. And he's not even the best. He's not even the best fighter in his family.
Golden Gloves champion Andre August, Brian Borland as well. Anderson Silva was an undefeated boxer. I mean, you can sit there and make up shit, but you actually don't know your facts. I fought multiple boxers with professional records, and including Mike Tyson himself, who I think is going to be a harder fight than Chavez.
Media persona Piers Morgan offered a blunt indictment of Jake Paul's boxing career, adding his voice to the mounting mistrust. According to Piers, Morgan underlined that Jake had not yet faced a legitimate professional boxer in his prime. In the boxing world, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is the eagerly anticipated test. There is increasing agreement that Julio Jr. has the technical prowess and ring smarts to convincingly defeat Jake Paul.
But yeah, Asking about Jake Paul. Who do you got in the Jake Paul fight?
Jake Paul and Chavez Jr. Julio. Viva Julio.
Viva Julio!
Julio.
Bro, chat.
Julio's winning.
Oh,
That's Manny's manager. He's putting it out there.
I'll see you Saturday night. Viva Julio.
Veteran trainer Robert Garcia has stated publicly that Chavez Jr. only needs to show up and box. The difference in skill, in Garcia's opinion, is sufficient to determine the result. Chavez Jr.'s experience, natural talent, and tactical acumen make him a dangerous opponent for anyone without the necessary professional seasoning.
But one thing I've gotten off him during this week is that he's viewing this fight as at least a pathway to some form of redemption. He's not going to get all his fans back. He's not going to redeem himself on the eyes of the fans of his father. But if he can beat Jake Paul and beat him convincingly, maybe you don't think quite so much about quitting against Daniel Jacobs or against Fanfara or that terrible performance against Anderson Silva. Like, I think the point is, I think he's coming into this fight with the right approach, with the right mindset. I promise you, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. is not just here for a payday. He is not just here to collect a check and to get whitewashed by Jake Paul over 10 rounds. He's coming to win. He may not win. Jake could turn out to be even better than maybe people generally think, but he's coming to win, and I think it's going to be a competitive fight.
Even the renowned warrior, after weighing in on the contest, Manny Pacquiao made a clear decision. The difference in real-world boxing experience and pedigree tilts the fight decisively in Julio's favor. His endorsement carries weight, not only because of his Hall of Fame resume, but also because Pacquiao knows what it takes to succeed at the elite level. Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Pacquiao, known for his keen boxing instincts, believes that Chavez Jr. is Pacquiao's superior opponent.
I really don't know his habits. You know, he has a bad track record on, preparing. But look, man, if Chavez comes in at least 60%, then I think Jake really has a fight, because one thing that Chavez has is experience. He may not have the youth, and the agility that Jake has right now, but he does have the experience. And I think that experience would give Jake a problem.
I completely agree with you. I think this is an excellent fight for Jake Paul. Officially, he is 11-1, but he's really like 2-1 as a boxer.
Yeah.
He's fought Tommy Fury. He fought a couple of no-name cruiserweights. I guess if you want to throw Mike Perry into that list, you can say he's 3-1. But against guys that are traditional boxers, he's a 2-1 fighter.
According to boxing industry insiders, Julio is not entering this fight based on his name recognition or prior accomplishments, as some critics had anticipated. Instead, he is training hard, staying focused, and treating Jake Paul as a real challenge rather than an easy payday. This mentality shift is crucial, especially in a sport where underestimating someone can cost you everything.
He knows exactly what to do. Jake Paul just fought against Mike Tyson, who didn't even throw one punch. This is not Mike Tyson. You are going to get your ass whooped.
No hay manera de que le gane Jake Paul.
There is no way Jake Paul can
Esta
beat him.
preparación que hizo Julio, Jake Paul no la sabe, ¿entiendes?
This camp, Jake Paul doesn't know
va a
it.
salir a tirarle chingazos y Jake Paul va a andar corriendo como gallina.
Julio's going to go in throwing some serious punches, and you're going to be running like a chicken without a head.
Veteran boxer Gabe Rosado offered a thorough analysis highlighting how experience often gives fighters the decisive advantage in high-stakes matches. He pointed out that while Jake is young and has momentum, Julio has seen all the tough warfare, championship rounds, and the grind of actual professional boxing. Rosado believes that training camps and demonstration bouts cannot replicate or replace the years spent in actual combat.
Let's talk about this one here. This Saturday, June 28th, we've got Jake Paul. He's gonna take on Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And I don't know if this is a real fight or if it's a fake one, so let's talk about this. Alright, let's say this is a real fight, because I don't know, I don't want to sound like a hater, but some of Jake Paul's fights look like they've been staged. So let's say this is a real fight. This is the real deal. Listen, man, Chavez Jr. has never been the greatest boxer out here. He's lacked in discipline, he's lacked in the sport, but nevertheless, he is a credible opponent. Jake Paul, on the other hand, I don't know, Some of the fights look staged. Some of the knockouts look like the guys have been paid. With that being said, the problem child is taking on Chavez Jr. this weekend. Let's take a look at both men's professional record. Yes, I said professional record. Listen, box rec. This is Jake Paul's professional record. Alright, cool. Let's get into it. 11 wins, 7 coming via knockout, and 1 loss. Let's take a look at Jake Paul's actual professional record. So he's fought 3 professional boxers. 1 Tommy Fury, 1 Andre August, and 1 Ryan Berlin.
July. In an assertive and almost prophetic tone, Cesar Chavez, a legend in his own right, did not hold back when he supported his son. He told Jake Paul that what was about to happen was unlike anything he had ever experienced. For Chavez Sr., this isn't just another incident. His faith in his son's ability comes from more than just genetics. He also saw firsthand the sacrifices made by Julio Jr. to regain his focus and form.
I'm really excited because the only reason I got involved with this is because he's fighting a real fighter now. Julio Cesar Chavez went 12 rounds with Canelo. He is an ex-world champion in boxing. So this is a real legit fight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm obviously questioning what Chavez Jr. will we see. Will he be in great shape? Will he not be in shape? Will he make weight? Will he do a lot of questions behind it? But ultimately, you have to tell yourself, Jake Paul, congratulations. This is a real first legitimate world champion fighter you're fighting.
Given Jake Paul's history of taking on older retired athletes and YouTubers, many observers are dubious about the legitimacy of this upcoming fight. There are growing concerns that it may follow the same predetermined pattern. Critics contend that if this is merely a publicity stunt, Jake Paul's career won't really benefit. But if the fight is truly competitive, even a slightly injured Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. poses a serious challenge. Unlike Jake, even though Julio is beyond his peak, his credibility stems from the fact that he has faced great opponents and has the battle scars to show it.
Canelo backed out and all that kind of stuff, but is this, another name that just, like I said, gives the detractors more feel for their fighter? Does this help Jake at all?
I don't think it's really going to help him that much. I mean, it will in the sense that he fought a legitimate fighter that actually was
a
professional fighter and a world champion. But to get him after a 5-year layoff and him being inactive is almost just like fighting Mike Tyson.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the same thing. It's like an older guy past his prime who hasn't fought in a long time. I guess he doesn't have an MMA career behind him, so maybe that's a good thing, but it's a lot of the same thing that people have always complained about.
But I think this is a fight that Jake can win. Mm-hmm. I mean, legitimately win.
Yeah.
Oscar de la Hoya, a boxing great in his own right, has expressed his strong support for the fight's competitive merit, seeing Chavez Jr. as a significant improvement in opposition for Jake Paul, who has often faced weaker opponents who weren't a serious danger. De La Hoya thinks that this bout will finally put Jake to the test. He has called it his most challenging yet, not just because of Julio's background, but also because of the resiliency and unpredictable nature of Jake that he still has in the ring.
How good is Jake Paul's next opponent, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr.? Can he pull off the upset and beat Jake? Now, Chavez Jr. in his prime was a really solid fighter, 46-0, 4-time WBC middleweight champion. This is him against Sergio Martinez, a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter. Hurt him bad with the left hook, dropped him in the 12th round, nearly got the finish, but Martinez did end up winning this fight. And then after losing the title in 2017, this is him versus Canelo in 2017. Solid pressure fighter, good body shots, decent hand speed, but these are pretty much his only highlights in the fight, because he pretty much lost every round 12-0. But still, he did go the distance with Canelo. But then you get to his most recent fight versus Uriah Hall at cruiserweight. He still got some decent body shots, but he looks considerably slower fighting at a heavier weight class. His footwork is a bit plotty, and he's not as fast. Look, Chavez Jr., he's not a bad fighter. He's never been a bad fighter. But what he is very undisciplined and considerably slower and more flat-footed at 39 years old fighting at cruiserweight. The technicality, the experience, it will give him a 25 to 30% chance. But the youth, the size, the speed of Jake, that'll give him more of the edge.
A more cautious assessment of the bout is provided by Jeff Mayweather, who concedes that Chavez Jr. had impressive credentials in the past, but questions how much of that ability is now there. From Jeff's perspective, the fight may appear better on paper than it does in the ring, but he thinks the timing favors Jake not because Jake is more skilled, but rather because Julio is far from his best days. He implies that the fight is more of a planned move to add a former champion to Jake's resume than a true test of skill.
Let's find a real boxer. This man's an ex-world champion. He's way smaller when he was competing.
Yeah.
He have to come up to my weight. He's the son of a legend. I'm now Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
He's Mexican. It's the best you could do. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, it's brilliant. You can't really do better than that if you're not trying to feed man to the wolves. But you're trying to make it appear so.
But do you reckon it's going to generate numbers?
Good question.
It depends how they market it.
It depends what Chavez comes on.
Yeah.
Because Jake won't be able to push this himself. It depends what Chavez comes on. If Chavez comes on some like, listen, bro,
I'm going to teach you boxing.
I'm going to teach you boxing. Yeah, then it can sell.
That type of energy.
But if he comes on the vibe we know he's on, which is why even his dad don't really mess with him.
The contest has spurred discussion over whether experience or youth are more important in boxing. Jake Julio contributes timing precision and a crisper technique, while Paul has the edge in energy and physical fitness. Julio's hand-speed defensive ability and general ring management understanding, according to observers, are better than anything Jake has shown so far. The combination of new ambition and seasoned technique makes this matchup intriguing. Many people think that even though Jake would pick up the tempo, Julia's ring craft could make the difference.
So Jake Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who wins? Now this fight should really come down to two things. The youth of Jake versus the experience and technicality of Chavez Jr. Now Jake, he'll probably be the faster guy, carries more power at cruiserweight. I don't think he's got good footwork by any means, but Chavez Jr. does look more plotty at cruiserweight, considering he is a middleweight / super middleweight moving up in weight later in his career. Now Chavez Jr., I do think he does a lot of things better than Jake. Defensively, his hand positioning is better, his lead left hook is better, his combinations and body shots are a lot more technical, but ultimately it comes down to can he execute the way he used to? Because if you look at his last fight against Uriah Hall, he didn't throw as much volume as he used to. Like I said, looked a lot heavier on the feet. And this was a 6-round fight, so who knows how his cardio will hold up in a 10-rounder against Jake. But since Chavez Jr. is quite durable, he went 12 with Canelo, went 12 with Sergio Martinez, I do think Jake wins this one by decision, just being the more active guy on the front foot. But for Chavez Jr. having any chance to win, he's got to throw 2 to 3 times more punches than he did in his last couple of fights.
There is no doubting this fight's commercial appeal. Jake Paul is a marketing powerhouse, and Chavez Jr. has a legacy name that still draws attention. The combination is media gold. Regardless of the outcome, both fighters stand to gain financially and reputationally. The combination of celebrity status and real boxing history guarantees high ticket sales and high viewership numbers. This fight attracts both younger audiences who follow Jake's online empire and traditional boxing fans who are interested in Chavez's comeback.
Jake Paul is going to be taking on former world champion Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in a fight that I think is going to fool a lot of people. Now, what do I mean by fool a lot of people? What I mean is people are going to, on paper, look at this and be like, oh, Jake Paul gets schooled here, gets schooled here. Chavez Jr. is 39. He was not known as a very disciplined boxer during his prime. That's one of the reasons he had such a heavy decline. He's also a lot smaller than Jake Paul. What I will say about Jake Paul is he is a genius, or his team and management are geniuses at giving him opponents that people on paper look at and be like, oh, Jake Paul's not a real fighter, he won't be able to beat this guy. This is very, 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 very minimal risk for Jake Paul. The only factor that could come into play here is if Chavez Jr. decides he actually wants to show up properly for this fight, conditioned, and use his experience to win. But Jake Paul, for me and his team, have been very, very careful about who they matchmake him against ever since the Tommy Fury fight. Ever since here, we haven't seen him in there with someone his own age, his own weight, and his own sort of experience. For me, if Jake Paul wants to be a YouTube boxer still, and he wants to be considered an influencer boxer, matchmaking him against these guys that on paper, oh, this is a big challenge for Jake Paul, in reality not really, is okay. But I think if Jake Paul actually is what he says he wants to be, and he wants to make that step up, man, he's going to have to take risks.
That's it for today's video. Stay tuned until next time.
Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. still merits appreciation for his accomplishments in spite of criticism over his current actions. While he is no longer at his peak, Julio's technical skill, endurance, and in-ring intelligence were among the best in the sport. If he shows even a hint of his former form, he could make things very difficult for Jake. He is a former WBC middleweight champion who has fought legitimate opponents and survived high pressure, but his prior experience gives him an advantage that no amount of YouTube training can duplicate. Regardless of the controversy or differing views, this fight is sure to be a huge event. Jake Paul's divisive personality ensures attention, and the fact that he will be competing against an experienced boxer for the first time only heightens the excitement. Everyone is watching, and the emotional pull, whether it be love or hate, is what drives sales despite any skepticism about the bout's legitimacy.